as you can see, Dane and I essentially just made a mold using the parchofis and the paddle. Okay, so I'm going to bring Dane a small stem to put on this.
Hot glass show here at the Corning Museum of Glass, Corning, New York.
Again, just using the furnace to gather up just a little bit of glass. And Dane requested that I marver the sides. And this table is what we call the marver. It's a piece of Blanchard ground steel. I'm just going to marver the sides a little bit, and I'm going to serve this to him just like that. He's going to use a tool called the diamond shears to cut that free. Okay, so he's just shaping that stem up a little bit, and he'll probably pull it out and make it a little bit longer. So again, as the glass cools down, he has to constantly go into the reheating chamber to get it hot again. It's constantly cooling down, but we want to make sure that the glass doesn't drop below 900 degrees, or else we could risk thermal shock. So Dane has requested that I paddle again. Okay, so as you can see, Dane has created a small stem here. Now he's requesting that he wants to put a foot on the bottom. So I'm going to gather another bit of glass here. I'm going to bring it to him a little bit of a different way. You'll see him use a Swedish tool to shape the foot. You ready? So Dane has requested that I use a bigger rod, which you can see has a sort of tapered head, which yields more material. More than this. Okay, so you can see Dane has just coiled that foot on there. Now he's using this footing tool, which is primarily a Swedish tool, Swedish footing tool. And he's just pretty much compressing it between two pieces of cherry wood. It's going to allow him to achieve that thin disc at the bottom of that stem. So I'm going to use a wooden paddle again to make sure that that bottom is really nice and flat. Okay, so now I'm going to take another gather on that regular size iron, and I'm going to make a small little sort of bullet-shaped bit on the end of this that's not too hot and not too cold. The reason for that is I'm going to connect this to the bottom of the foot. We're going to make a temporary connection that's going to allow us to open the lip of the vessel. So it's really crucial that I don't keep this too warm, but I also don't keep it too cold. If I keep it too warm, it's going to fuse completely to the bottom of his piece. if it's too cold, it won't stick. So he's putting a little bit of air on that, so you can see it's still pretty hot. And he just wants to make sure that it doesn't fully fuse to the bottom. Good. Just going to put a little bit of water on that incision, on that jack line, and we're going to tap it free. So if you look at the screen, you can see a small opening. You can see a small opening at the tip of that. Well, that was where the glass was once connected to the pipe. So now we're left with a small opening that's going to become the lip of this vessel. So we've essentially transferred it to another pipe to allow us to have access to the lip. So I think, if I can predict right, that Dane is going to try to keep the contour of that form and make almost like a small hourglass shape. Am I right, Dane? I hit the nail on the head there, so we're going to just sort of flare that open a little bit so it just has a nice sort of hourglass contour. So this is the longest heat of the process. The part that Dane's trying to heat up now, which is the lip, was actually the last thing to go in the glory hole every time, or the reheating chamber, and it was the first thing to come out, so it got the least amount of heat. So now he's trying to heat that back up, and this is probably the longest heat of the process. You can see that he's going all the way into the reheating chamber, and that's just to maintain a temperature of above 900 or 1,000 degrees on the whole vessel. So it got a little bit hot and the tool sort of tagged the side of it a little bit. So we're just going to get rid of that part. No, it doesn't exist anymore. We'll flare it back open. These things happen. It's worse than sometimes they fall on the floor. Worse things could happen, you know? So. And you can see Dane has kept his cool. We're used to it. It does happen. It's part of the game. So you can see this is sort of interesting. You can see Dane's putting another jack line there, and that's going to allow us to knock this little piece right off of here. So you can see when the glass came out of the furnace, it was like this molten honey. And if you dripped it, it would just sort of blob onto the floor. But as it gets cold, you can see that it actually really does break and it really is glass. Anyone out there first time seeing a glass blowing demonstration? What do you think? The honeymooners like it. These two just got married. Congratulations. Alright, so Dane is right back in action here. We got rid of the little, though we won't call it a mistake, we're moving right along here, you know, everything is good. So Dane's going to focus his heat on the tip of that again, right there on the lip. We're going to come back and, Dane, would you like a paddle or just going to open it up? Okay, Dane does not want a paddle, so he's just going to flare that open again, probably keeping that nice hourglass shape. like a pro. All right. So here we have a finished piece. I'm going to take this small fork here. Dane's going to knock this off. Okay. Here we go. A nice little chalice. Now let's see. Dane, do you want to, yeah. So this glass looks like it's, nice and cool, room temperature. Well, it's still extremely hot. Extremely hot. That's just a little piece of paper as it burns. Very cool. You can see that the flame is still in there. Okay. Now, unfortunately, because we make things all day long, sometimes we like to show our guests how thermal shock works. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this beautiful piece made by Dane, we're going to put it right into this bucket, we're going to break it, and we're going to use the glass tomorrow. So it will be turned into another beautiful creation. So why don't everybody give Dane a big round of applause for his excellent glass blowing. And I'm just going to drop this right in here. You guys can look on the screen and see how it reacts. You can see that sometimes it shatters and sometimes it stays together. But thank you all for coming today to the Hot Glass Show here at the Corning Museum of Glass. If you have any questions, please feel free to come up and ask. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here at the museum.